think we are live on Facebook. Hi guys, it's Myk Simms here from MMAMV. I'm here today with some Senate candidates for Queensland. So for the rest of the week, I'll be bringing you different candidates from around Australia, just so you can ask them some questions and you can hear why you should vote for them. So during the last 2 years, we've been trying to push politicians away from some of these rallies. Some of them, like George, have been there anyway, throwing his support in Mackay, I think Brisbane, Canberra. He's been there. Same with Allona. I know she was in Canberra, Sunshine Coast, Brisbane. But we were trying to push politicians away. We didn't want the rallies to be political because we wanted to get rid of them. So with weeks out from the election, I think now it's time that we all back these guys that are freedom fighting politicians or candidates, and we get behind them. So that's why they're here, and I hope you learn some more about these guys from watching the live and you vote for these guys. That's why I've got them here. I like them. You can choose for yourself, but if everyone wants to introduce themselves, we'll start Allona up the top.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. Thanks for having me. So Allona Lahn, Queensland Senate Candidate for the Informed Medical Options Party, natural health advocate, freedom of choice ambassador, and been going since 2015, advocating for freedom of choice and rights. And we are, the first pro-choice anti-mandate party that hit the shores of Australia back in 2016. So thanks for having me.
And Rebecca.
Hi folks, Rebecca Llyod, founder CEO of Fair Business Australia. We are a small business alliance that has fundraised over $50,000 to go into legal accounts so that we can help small businesses who are fighting what we believe to be unlawful fines. And we provide general legal advice and are going to be the not-for-profit alternative to Amazon as we launch our new marketplace in addition to our directory. Very, very excited to be here. I am an independent Senate candidate for the entire state of Queensland. I do keep getting asked, oh, it's such a shame we can't vote for you. I said, do you live in Queensland? That means you can vote for me. We're hitting the ground running, definitely the last horse in the race, myself and my running partner, Steve Dixon. But we are running hard and looking forward to a very, very good result on May 21st. I feel very confident that we're going to send at least 3, hopefully 4 out of the 6 seats of Freedom candidates down to Canberra. So the future looks bright for Australia, and I'm glad to be here on the Zoom this evening.
Thank you. And George, nice to meet you. Well, I've ran into you a few times, but nice to have a chat.
Indeed. Thanks very much for inviting me on, Michael. Obviously, I'm George Christensen. I'm a former Member of Parliament of about 3 weeks ago now. And mate, the biggest issue that I see this coming election is protection of our freedoms. The last 2 years have been an absolute tragedy for freedom and rights, for businesses, for employment, for a whole range of things. And if there's one issue that I'm very passionate about this election, it's ensuring that we don't forget and that we do something about what's just happened. A Royal Commission would be a good start. People need to be held to account, and we need to increase that fight for freedom beyond just what's happened with the pandemic, and the next fight's digital identity laws.
Thank you. Well, we'll talk about a few things during this, but I know you guys watching have all been fighting against mandates. I've been fighting against mandates before there were mandates, gaslit the whole time, and now they've came. George, what is your opinion? What is your policy around mandates?
Well, I think I've made that clear over the last year and a half to 2 years. Mate, the entire thing was unwarranted. Maybe you could have forgiven the first month or so, 2 months maybe, of sort of worry because we didn't know what the hell this thing was. But at the end of the day, even if it was something to worry about, which it really wasn't with a 0.27% infection fatality rate, the question is, why did you blow up all of these freedoms and human rights and liberties and jobs and livelihoods and businesses and all the rest of it? It's almost, I know what we're fighting against, but actually what were we fighting for? And so, but none of it was warranted. And the fact that even some of these restrictions remain now is just absolutely shocking. And as I said before, people need to be held to account. I'm running on Pauline Hanson's One Nation Party ticket, and we think that there should be a Royal Commission. We think people should be held to account so that none of this is ever repeated.
Excellent. Rebecca, same question.
Yeah, absolutely, Michael. Folks, we all know what's wrong with the last 2 years because we've lived through it. The issue now that is facing us at the election is to ensure that it never happens again. And we know, historically speaking, that there will continue to be governmental overreach. We've been groomed for many, many years to be very comfortable with Big Brother watching us. We'd be very comfortable with tap your phone, digital currency, all those different things. Trust the cloud, put it on the cloud. Everything's about the cloud. Everything is big tech. Everything is social media. And now all of a sudden, over the last 2 years, we realised how disconnected we were if we weren't able to get out to those rallies in the park. And so what we need to do when we're marching very, very steadily towards the Great Reset, which is no secret, all the governments are putting it out with, on press releases, on press conferences, they're talking about moving forward and lowering carbon emissions and climate change and all those different things. And we need to ensure that we never have governmental overreach to this degree. You never would have thought that we would have 2 weeks to flatten the curve. That happened. You never would have thought that we would have mandates and people would have to choose between putting food on the table and putting in an experimental drug in their body. That happened. If you'd have said 10 years ago that we would be faced with losing our bodily autonomy, we would have said that you had rocks in your brain. And look what's happened over the last 2 years. So it would be foolish for us to think simply because we've had our freedoms, we've had the relaxation and we've had some of our freedoms returned to us in Queensland, that we're not going to see these type of overreaching mandates again. And definitely I agree with Mr. Christensen that we do need a Royal Commission. But as a community, we need to put things in place so that we're not relying on governmental leadership, so that we can lead ourselves at a community level, at a nuclear family level. And certainly having good people in Parliament is going to aid that. But the conversation does need to go far beyond the election of 2022, and how are we going to ensure that we make short work of any more governmental overreach in the state of Queensland and indeed in Australia.
Excellent. And Allona?
Yeah, Michael, I saw this coming back in 2015 with No Jab, No Pay and Play, where, if the government can discriminate, segregate and financially punish families and children and segregate children, I saw the writing on the wall. So for me, this has been a long journey, and I believe that this has been happening for decades, the erosion of our rights and choice. Yes, and Rebecca, thank you. A lot of people thought I had rocks in my brain because I'm sitting there trying to tell people no jab, no travel, no jab, no job is coming. And unfortunately, people just weren't quite ready to listen. I think all of us have been shocked at the mandates and the level of the erosion of rights that's happened. I could never have predicted this exactly, but I tell you, I saw it coming. So I've been standing up in there, and fighting for a long time. It simply has to stop. We need good people in Parliament that have logical brains. And when I was early 2020, I was travelling and I actually saw the economic damage and the loss of tourism overseas. I travelled around through, so February 2020, I was travelling through Singapore, Bali, Vietnam and Thailand, and it was devastating to see, even back then, the economic disaster and the loss of tourism and lives and financial stability that was happening way back then. So when I hit back in Australia, when I got back in March 2020, I was actually discriminated against because I'd been overseas and people didn't want to see me. And I was like, whoa. But I did a call out back then and I said, how about we protect the vulnerable and the elderly and we make provision for them, and the rest of us, the healthy society, get on with their lives so that we don't end up in a financial crisis. Where we're at right now, not only have we created mental health issues, stress and poverty and loss of businesses and jobs, that could have been avoided just with a basic let the healthy people get on with their lives and let's protect the vulnerable and the elderly. So that's what I was advocating back in March 2020.
Excellent. I'm sure everyone will be happy with those answers. Take that. Now, just to be clear though, because Scott Morrison said there'll be no mandates, or there's no policy for mandates. A lot of people are going back to work. I myself still cannot. Is there any conditions with any of you guys, or are you against mandates altogether, or are you happy for some jobs to be mandated and some activities to be mandated?
Michael, I think that bodily autonomy is something that should never be taken away from anybody, no matter what the sector is. I think we would be having a very different conversation if the science had proven that the vaccine was safe and effective. It is neither safe nor is it effective. We've got people now who are up to number 3 jab. I mean, Israel is up to number 5. And they are seeing extreme hospitalisation levels. We're seeing people hospitalised now who have had 2 jabs plus a booster. We're seeing people down in Victoria who have complied and had the 2 jabs, and now they're being faced with losing their jobs again if they don't get a booster. So I am absolutely for protecting, as Allona said, protecting the vulnerable, yes, protecting our children, but it's gone very, very topsy-turvy that we now have to jab the children to protect the very elderly. It makes no sense at all. I do not believe that we ever should mandate entire industries, particularly the way the government did it. If it was a deadly pandemic and we were all going to explode and die in 3 seconds flat, why did they not do it as a blanket rule for every single industry all across Australia? And I'll tell you why. It's because when they did it one by one, everybody else shrunk back and thought, if I just stay quiet, they'll probably leave me alone. Oh, they're coming after the health responders, the first responders. Oh, well, I'll just be quiet and see what happens. Oh, they're coming after the teachers now. I'll just be quiet. Oh, now they're coming after construction. I'll just be quiet. And every single time we took a shrinking step back and let another industry topple like a domino, look where we are in Australia today. Yes, they're saying that we've had an increase of jobs back into the workforce. I don't agree with that. I think that they have stood people down without pay, but they're still technically employed. The statistics don't lie. However, you can bend them very, very definitively. And so I am absolutely against ever mandating, particularly for something, as Mr. Christensen said, has a less than a 0.02% chance of passing away. And that's if you have comorbidities.
And George, same?
Well, look, I couldn't do better than what Rebecca has just said then. There are mandates. They shouldn't belong in any sector, including even the aged care and health sectors. They would be the only ones where people would probably quibble over. But the fact is that we see now that vaccinated or not, you can still get this disease. No, we shouldn't be even using the word vaccinated, because when you're vaccinated, it means you're protected from something. You're not protected from something with these shots. So what is the point? What is the point of continuing on the facade? I'd say that it just all needs to end. The fact that blind Freddie can see exactly what is going on with these vaccines, with the fact that people are still catching it, with the fact that actually for most people, the symptoms of COVID are moderate and mild, and yet we still have these bloody vaccine mandates in the workplace, just shows that, what's going on is just completely illogical. It all needs to end. It really does.
Absolutely. So I'm 100% there. But let's go back to the flu vaccine that was mandated for people to go see their elderly parents in aged care facilities, which
I agree as well.
Way before 2020. What an absolute disgrace. And how many families, including myself, because my brother was unable to see my mother in an aged care facility because he refused the flu vaccine. The flu vaccine is neither safe nor effective. So therefore, it should be a right, a God-given right, an inalienable right, but to have body autonomy, given that no vaccine is safe and effective. So I think the current COVID vaccine is a debacle. We've seen that. And the TGA website clearly says that there's, over 120,000 adverse events reported, and that's only what's reported. And the flu vaccine, the childhood vaccination schedule, all the vaccines need a royal commission into the safety, effectiveness, and the necessity of all vaccines. So the COVID vaccine, it has shone a light on the ineffectiveness and the lack of safety with vaccines. And it's not a vaccine, but let's call it a vaccine just for the sake of this.
Don't get me banned just for that one line.
Yeah. Michael, can I jump in and just agree with Allona furiously there? The fact is that, yes, we have all arced up about the COVID-19 vaccine, but these other impositions that we have in other walks of life, whether it be the no jab, no pay or play policy that's in childcare centres, that's wrong. That is just, it's wrong. I actually privately said at the time it was wrong, and I was actually a bit scared about publicly saying that it was wrong, and I'm not so scared anymore after what we've been through. These flu jabs for people that present to aged care homes, it's also wrong. I've known former constituents of mine, who were just barred from seeing their parents because of that policy. And I don't know about you, but look, I've had the flu jab, and I tell you, I still end up getting a pretty bad cold in the years that I get the flu jab. So again, don't put much stock in it. But anyway, that's just me.
Yeah, onto that, and I'll ask you this question first. You've just said you were scared to talk about it in the past. I'm sure a lot of us are, not just people in your position, but most of us, we go to a job, they look at our Facebook or our Instagram or what we say in the tea room. It's very controversial to some, especially going to rallies. So a lot of us went to rallies in the last 2 years. A lot of us put our job and our reputation on the line to go to such things. How did you deal with that? And what do you feel about people's rights to protest in general?
Well, Michael, how I dealt with it, I'm actually not fat. I've just got very thick skin. No, that's a joke, but I mean, you need to, with this issue in particular. I got smashed by media. I got condemned by Parliament for saying what I'm saying from both sides. The former party that I was actually in at the time also voted to condemn me. I've been called an anti-vaxxer, called a conspiracy theorist, called all names under the sun, but it just doesn't matter. The truth is the truth, and the truth is that vaccine mandates are bad. All of the restrictions that happened as a result of the pandemic are bad. It's also true to say there is no long-term safety data for these mRNA vaccines. It is also true to say they're provisionally approved in Australia only. All coercion, particularly mindful of those two factors, is just wrong. So you've just got to speak the truth, particularly when you're in politics, and or otherwise, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And Rebecca?
I think to add to what George has just said, for me, the real concern with the rallies is that if the government were actually going to be swayed or feel ashamed or be open to listening to what the Australian people demand, if they were actually open to that, we would have seen a massive turnaround, if not before, certainly after the convoy to Canberra. That was one of the largest gatherings I have ever seen, if not the largest gathering I've ever seen on the shores of Australia. And not only was it ignored by the government, but it was also ignored by the mainstream media, as in they said there were at least 10,000 people present, which was a flat out lie when you look at the drone footage. And so that very much concerns me, Michael, that you can have hundreds of thousands of people all standing together saying, we do not want this. We are not happy with you. You are taking away our autonomy. You are taking away our human rights. You are acting unconstitutionally. And yet the government ignored that. And if you speak to certain people, there is very, very strong evidence out there that there were actually weapons used on the crowd, because a lot of those people got burned. Now, I challenge anybody in actual fact to fact check me on that, and I'll be very happy to retract that statement. However, right now, the mainstream media are completely ignoring that, which tells me that there's probably some truth to it, because as I've learned in my 42 years on this planet, if the media ignores something, you probably need to be taking a look at it. So I don't think it's the fact that we're meeting for rallies. I think it's the fact that we're meeting for rallies and we are still being completely ignored. That's what really concerns me.
Yeah, look, Rebecca, I totally agree. Like, we can have so many people at a rally and yet it's totally ignored and we're censored out of control. I do want to say thank you to the people that have come to the rallies. I think for morale and for people to see other people coming together, I think that's been really inspiring. Like, people have really, like, and out of the snowball effect. And the reason why I jumped into politics years ago and the reason why I spoke out, because I recognised that people needed to be empowered. And so by me speaking about vaccination, although obviously I haven't been elected yet, what it did, it inspired other people and it inspired the candidates and it inspired the MPs. And, you know, you got a different platform that I otherwise would never have got. So, and George, you did say at the Meet the Senate Candidate event on Saturday, you did say that you were against the no jab, no pay and play policy, which I did appreciate. But at the end of the day, what happened is it passed, even though there was the most submissions against a policy ever at that point in time. The government didn't listen. And unfortunately, the government isn't listening. They're seeing the crowds, they're seeing the people, and yet they're still not listening. So we need people on the inside to talk and influence and educate the current politicians and MPs and the bureaucrats on that note to have a voice and to go, hey, hang on a minute, there is another side, and hang on, look at this and hold these people to account. You can see that there's adverse events. You can see that there's damage being caused. Let's have a look at that. So, I mean, that's why I'm excited about the potential of getting in, because I want to look these people in the eye and say, hang on, we're down. Why do we have a childhood epidemic of disease, different disease? You know, why do we have a sick society? So the rallies are amazing. And Myk Simms, what you've done is absolutely amazing. So credit to you and credit to all the people that are speaking up and going to those rallies now.
That's why we're all here. And lots of questions after everything you all said. But yeah, when obviously you were running rallies before I came along, and then I started, and the media just mocked us and gaslit us. Your name's Millions March Against Mandatory Vaccines. The vaccine won't be out for 4 years. And then it was the vaccine's not mandatory. Our first real press was when we had Pete Evans. And then obviously they turn him into a loony bin. You know, they make out that he's loony. Any doctor, we started getting doctors on stage, and all of a sudden they're losing their jobs and get barred from practicing. We have politicians step on stage, and then, like George said, they're bad mouth and they're called crazy and they're conspiracy theorists. What can we do? And what can you guys do if you're elected? Because as we've seen, Pauline and Malcolm have put through things. Not Clive, Craig Kelly has put through things, and we get all of 5-6 votes on our side. What difference, or what do you guys think we should do? How can we move forward?
Who do you want to ask me?
Allona.
I have been first, and I've had the privilege of listening to your answers and gaining some insight. So I think what we need to do is basically empower the people. The people have just been muted, and they're being poisoned, and they're sick, and they're tired, and these mandates are a style. You know, they don't make sense. It's been up and down on purpose, I believe, to trick the public. So it's actually, I just want to put it back into the hands of the public, and it's now up to the people to stand in their truth and power and to vote accordingly, and make sure you vote for good people with truth and integrity, and that are going to hold the government to account. And I think we've got those people now that are standing, and that's what's been so amazing about all the freedom parties coming together. And yeah, we're ready for change. The Australian public deserve a beautiful future. And if we continue down this path that we're on, it's unsustainable. And we can't keep these mad people in Parliament, because we will destroy not only Australia, but as far as I can see it, humanity and our human essence and being. So it's really important that the people step up. So.
I second what Allona is saying. I think we've had trailblazers like Mr. Christensen. I mean, me personally, I only started getting involved in politics when Trump got into power, and I was like, what is this? Why is someone in the business world suddenly going to politics? I always just voted Liberal. Ever since I was 18, that's how my family had voted. So that's how I voted. It was always a two-horse race. You either vote red or blue, whatever. And then I started watching Mr. Christensen. I've been watching him for about 4 years, going, what is this man saying? And then you start thinking, okay, if his own party is condemning what he's saying, we need to start paying attention. And I think what is going to be the big difference here, Michael, particularly after this election, is that the Australian people are finally getting involved and getting very, very interested in politics. Long gone are the days where we just feather our own nest, trust the politicians to get work done down in Canberra. We're now starting to see that a bureaucratic mess happens. Politicians are only there for 4 short years. That is a very, very short space of time to make a lasting change in your country. And often people come in with the best of intentions, and you see a lot of them go wayward and come out of office far wealthier than what they went in. And so I think the Australian people are finally starting to take interest in what is the driver's position in the car that is Australia. So I see nothing but good in the future for Australia, simply because we are part of the Great Awakening as a community.
Excellent. George?
Yeah, well, look, Mick, firstly, can I just say that I neglected to mention one thing about the rallies in the last question, and that was that we honestly should never have repeated the situation where people who otherwise would be peacefully protesting are set upon by police, fired upon with projectiles. That should be anathema in this country. So I want to say that, and that's something that also needs to be looked at if there is a Royal Commission. In regards to the question you asked, look, I'm a bit of a realist about it, perhaps a bit of a pessimist about our chances. I don't think there's going to be a wholesale revolution where we're going to get the major parties knocked out of power and there's going to be replaced by a Craig Kelly government or something like that. I just don't think that that's realistic, and I think the polls show that's the case. So what's the point then? Well, the point is to ensure that there are enough of these freedom parties and freedom candidates that actually have an office either in the House of Reps or in the Senate, in order to be the balance of power and block bad laws. Now, a lot of the laws that were put forward, yes, were done by state governments under state health orders. So trying to actually proactively do something that enacts a new law to stop a state law is very difficult. But there are measures that are going to come out of the incoming federal government, whether it's the re-elected coalition one or a newly elected Labor one, which we are going to want to have blocked. And I again refer to the digital identity legislation. So this is where freedom parties and freedom candidates that are elected and become either senators or House of Reps will come into their own. The other thing that I want to say, you mentioned the media and how people were gaslit and called all sorts of things. As you know, I just said I've been one of them. Other people on this forum, in fact, probably all of us have been targeted by the media in some respect. For our views, but they try and go after other things and try to cover up the fact that really they're targeting us for our views. Now, we can't hope to change the media through the ballot box or change the media through legislation in Parliament. That's all got to do with culture. And so I just say, I think that what you're doing and what so many other people are doing in terms of alternative media and utilising the internet to get that message out is vitally important. If we are to change the culture of this nation, which will change governments in the future, then we must have independent voices out there. Now, that leads me to one thing, and I'll shut up after this. There is one thing that can be done politically to help in this space. I noticed when I just went to share this live stream on my page, it immediately come up with a warning talking about disinformation or something like that. Well, that stuff needs to go. There needs to be no more big tech censorship. Quite frankly, these big tech outfits like Facebook, like YouTube, Google, Twitter, whatever it is, they are all foreign owned, and they should not be in the business of censoring philosophical, ideological and political discourse or any other lawful form of discourse in this nation. And to the great shame, the government, the Liberal and National parties, which both have in their value statement and their constitutions, what are just words now, just meaningless words about freedom and free speech. They have done nothing about this. In fact, the only thing they've done in the big tech space, really, well, there's two things they've done in the big tech space. One, they basically enabled the big corporate media to get money out of big tech outfits. So that's one thing. They didn't do something for the little guy, you and me. They did something for the big end of town. And the second thing they've done is they proposed to set up, like what Joe Biden's done in the US, a disinformation unit that actually polices what you and I might say on big tech. So it's heading in the wrong direction, and it rapidly needs people in the parliament to actually send it in the other direction, which is all about freedom.
Yeah, that's a big one. Like, I lost my job. I'm now online until the election's over. Then I need to find another real job. But I can, not that I was making a lot of money online, but I was getting money coming in. They've stopped that, the online world, over the littlest things. So I've lost multiple pages over the years, but recently I shared a Malcolm Roberts post about the tennis player being the first person to get banned from sports for rejecting drugs. Facebook banned me for 30 days for that, for sharing that in my story. And they said, no, that's fake. He was the second athlete banned. So that's how much they're after me. There's not even bad information. They'll go after anything. LeBron James, very famous basketball player, if people know him, millions and millions of fans. He shared a Spider-Man meme. One Spider-Man said COVID, one said flu, one said cold, COVID, flu. Yeah, 3 Spider-Mans, because basically he tested positive, wasn't allowed to play. Next day he tested negative, and he's like, well, what have I got? You know what I mean? I got banned on Instagram for that one. So but he's got 1 million followers, 10 million probably, and he didn't get banned. It was just, I got banned. So they're obviously watching some of us. And in February, I had 3 million people watch this page. And if you look on now, we've got like, I don't know, maybe 100. Like you said, people can't share it. It's moved down the feeds. This is what they do to try and hide our message still. Is any of you guys suffering from the same thing?
Yeah, I certainly am. We grew very, very quickly from only maybe 1,000 people up to 15,000 people in 3 weeks. That was over Christmas, and I was getting around 700 people on a live. And then as soon as we obviously got flagged, since Christmas, I have grown by 1,600 likes. So 3 weeks was 15,000. And 4 months is 1,600. And now I'm very, very fortunate to crack 100. I could just manage to get back 120 people on a live the other day. So the algorithms are certainly against us. And I think anytime you see somebody or something trying to control the narrative, you need to pay very, very close attention to what is being shut down. Because without freedom of speech and what we've seen now, freedom of bodily autonomy, we actually don't have freedom at all. We didn't realise how much we were slaves to the dollar, slaves to our jobs, slaves to the governmental overreach, and also entirely dependent on social media and big tech. So we've got a ways to go to unravel the spider web that we've kind of gotten ourselves entangled in. but I still do believe that it will happen. And I strongly agree with Mr. Christensen that he says that as culture changes, our government will naturally change. You've got people down in Canberra that live in an absolute bubble. They don't know what it's like for average working class people because they haven't missed a paycheck since this whole thing started. And so by getting average working class people, or people that have been in the healthcare profession, or people that have been in the educational profession down into Canberra, we will have a far broader worldview, people that have had a little bit more life experience in different sectors. And I don't think that's going to do anything other than good for this entire country.
Yeah. I'll go on to you in a second, Allona, because I'm going to ask you this question.
Okay.
I'll lead with it. What were we just saying? My mind's thinking of 10 questions in a row. What are we
Censorship. Censorship. I think we were talking about censorship.
Censorship, media, censorship.
For me, the censorship, what it shows is, or what's happening is, the light is now shining on all the issues that we've got here in Australia. What COVID has done has just shone the light that the system's corrupt, it's broken. The system needs an overhaul. We need more truth, transparency, and accountability. Like that's what I like at the moment. And the fact that we're being censored means that they're concerned. And I think meeting in person and doing the rallies and doing different things that we're doing, they're just simply not going to be able to stop. And I think there is a concern there. So
I think for me, when the president of the United States of America can be banned from social media, something's wrong. If we look at our media, the Prime Minister can do whatever he wants. Do you know what I mean? We used to have a day when the media would go after the Prime Minister, no matter if it was Liberal or Labor, the media would go after him because they wanted the other team to do better. Now it's like they're Liberal and Labor are the same thing.
Except on WeChat, Michael, the Chinese Communist Party controlled social media platform. The Prime Minister was taken down off WeChat and the media exploded. Now, I actually see, well, he wasn't taken down off. He had a post that he was promoting that was censored on WeChat. Still, it shouldn't have happened. WeChat still is in operation today in Australia, and I got to question, well, why? But actually, everyone set their hair on fire over that, quite rightly. But the same thing was in play when Facebook removed Craig Kelly. Facebook have removed some of my posts saying that they're disinformation. I've heard from other people who tell me that for a page that has over 121,000 followers, that most of my posts should be doing a hell of a lot better than what they actually do. Having said that, I'm not going to complain too much, because if you have a look at the, and this says something about it, even despite the shadow banning and what might be happening with all the analytics, there's a Twitter channel that's called Ozpol Posts, and it showcases in the day whose Facebook posts reach the most people amongst Australian politicians. The names that come up beyond Scott Morrison, Anthony Albanese, and say Tanya Plibersek, sort of the big names, the names that always come up are Pauline Hanson, Malcolm Roberts, Jared Rennick, and George Christensen. And Alex Antic pops up every so often, as does Matt Canavan. Now, there's a recurring theme amongst all of those people. I wonder what it is. I wonder why so many people are attracted to those Facebook posts that are being put up. Well, I can tell you what it is, because it's all about freedom. It's also about speaking against the mainstream narrative that is so prevalent in this country.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, because, to be honest, my local senators here in Canberra, I don't know who they are until election time when their signs are up all over the road. Before that, they're quiet as a mouse doing nothing. And I wonder why that is. Why aren't they speaking up for anything? We don't hear nothing from them at all. And then we see you all over Facebook and Instagram and the news, and Craig Kelly and Malcolm Roberts and Pauline. And what are my local guys doing? And what are the majority around them in Australia doing? You're sitting in the, sorry to pick on you, but you're sitting in there with them. we don't watch the 3 hours or 5 hours or however long it goes for. Is there actually much going on there other than, I don't want to swear, but other than bull, you know, a bit of high school?
Mate, look, I repeat what I said in my final speech to Parliament. Parliament has become a joke. I mean, you've got question time, which is the worst display of behaviour that you can see from people who are supposedly leading the country, and all it is just crap. I mean, one side asks questions that are actually written by other people, and they're you know, what they call Dorothy Dixes, softballers. The other side's asking these inane sort of gotcha questions. Some of them are just statements that they've worked their way to get a question mark on the end of them. So they mean nothing either, but even if it is a genuine question, it's never really truly answered. So question time's a joke. You've got this section that comes after question time, and this is by the by, but it's just a pet peeve of mine. It's called Matters of Public Importance, which sounds all lovely, you know, we're going to raise a matter of public importance. It turns out that it's nothing more than just a repeat of a high school debating class where someone puts forward a topic and there's people that speak for and against it with no outcome whatsoever. This is what our national parliament is devolved to. You know, it's like a sop to those people that love the high school debating club. You know, you could go on. The debates themselves for legislation, really, what that's become, you might as well forget about it. Just dial it in, because it's people just reading out the talking points that they've gotten from their whip or the minister about the legislation that's for it. So they're either going to speak to the opposition side against it or the government side for it, and then they will just vote along party lines anyway. Why do we bother sending 151 people to the House of Representatives when really they could just stay in their offices back in their electorates and just press a button that says, yep, I'm just going to vote how the government votes. And this is the problem with our parliament and the problem of the major parties. Now, I'm not in it anymore, so I really couldn't give a toss about it, but the major parties really need to become much more democratic and allow true representation rather than enforcing party discipline. But the media also has a role to play here, because as soon as someone becomes a little bit more individualistic, a little bit more free in their thinking, they immediately accuse that political party of being in disarray and chaos. So, you know, mate, I'm glad that I've made the move that I've made and gotten out and now where I am now, running for One Nation.
Yeah, well done. Can I just say, you know what's disgraced me and disturbed me about politicians and the government? They get in there, they name call, they bully, they pick on each other. It's an absolute disgrace, question time and the whole government setup. These are so-called leaders of our country. They are supposed to be role models for our children and for the rest of Australia. And what they've done is actually encouraged, endorsed and enforced bad behaviour. Mm-hmm. That is something that has disturbed me for years. And it's absolutely disgusting. If we're going to elect these people, they need to behave, they need to have decorum and respect, compassion, love. And I don't see any of that in politics at the moment. And that is a major issue, in my opinion. And our poor children watching these people that are so-called influencers and guiding the country and leading the country, they're not leaders. They're an absolute disgrace to democracy, to the Australian people, to humanity, as far as I'm concerned. So we need change desperately.
I love what Allona said. I'll add to that. I love what you're talking about with regards to role models. I was a nanny for 14 years in my past life, and I'm all about the next generation. And yes, what are we role modeling for them? But let's add to that a financial point of view. You have over 70 senators, over 151 House of Reps. That's over 200 people who are in Parliament, with a combined total of a minimum conservative amount of over $1 billion a year in salaries. So we have $1 billion a year outlay for people to banter and to name call and to bully. And we are still, after 2 years, $1 trillion in debt. We are dealing with, they say 4% inflation. Bollocks, I say to that. I say we're at least 20 to 30% inflation. Just go look at the shops, look at the lettuces, $9 a kilo a week ago. Look at tomatoes, $9.50 a kilo. Look at baked beans, up 20%. Look at fuel, overnight. Oh, it's because of the war in the Ukraine. Bull crap, it's not. It's not. It's because you guys can't rule. You can't rule, you can't reign. And I use those words deliberately because that's how you behave. Because this is not a democratic society. If it was a democratic society, you would have pulled your socks up and done something very, very different after the convoy to Canberra. So from a financial point of view, what's the government for? You're just going to get us into more debt, drive us off the proverbial cliff until we're all part of the Chinese social credit system, all with a digital ID, and all speaking Nazi German. It's just an absolute farce. It's ridiculous. It really is ridiculous. It's almost laughable, except for the fact that this great big joke that's going on right now is going to be paid for by those little children that I nannied for the last 14 years. They got born into this situation. They got born into us all being half asleep and not realising what was going on every term down in Canberra. We've got such a mess to clean up. Yes, we can do it, and yes, we will. But I agree with George, it's not going to happen overnight. It is going to take some time. And I'm very grateful that we have people that are very thick-skinned, like George, that are willing to stand up and willing to call it out, no matter the consequences, because it could have gone very differently for George. The Australian public has embraced him. And they rejoiced when he decided to go across to one nation, and rightly so, because he speaks for truth, he speaks for justice, and he speaks for the Australian people. And that is what those people in Canberra and those bureaucrats don't seem to understand, is that you don't speak for us because you don't speak to us. There is no relationship. There is no conversation. That's the difference between Mr. Christensen and his constituents and people down in Canberra and their constituents. It's all about relationship or the lack thereof.
Yeah, well done. Well said.
I think George is going to hire you.
Yeah.
I'm George's biggest fan. I used to be my favourite politician for so many years. I met him years and years ago at an event. I was like, oh, George, you're my favourite. He's like, okay, good.
So George, forget COVID, forget lockdowns, forget vaccines.
Yeah.
What is another issue that people have brought to you, or an issue that you're passionate about that you want to change or fix?
Well, I'll tell you 4 more that I think are the most important coming to this federal election. One is, I've said it before, I've probably said it more than once, digital identity. This is a slippery slope towards massive control. I see the UK already talking about programmable digital currency that'll be linked to it. I see Italy, or a province in Italy, has already brought in a social credit system. That'll probably be linked to it as well. So we have really got to fight against this anti-privacy agenda with this digital identity system. It's being pushed by the globalists like Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum. It's not something that anyone in Australia has asked for, as far as I know, apart from maybe bureaucrats in Canberra. So why do we have it? Why do we need it? Let's get rid of it and let's push freedom. We also need religious liberty, religious freedom actually enshrined in law, because we don't truly have it in this country. We've had situations where pastors have been dragged before anti-discrimination tribunals for simply saying stuff about their faith, and where people have been fired from jobs for simply saying something about their faith as well outside of the workplace. 2 other things. We do need to deal with communist China. I don't want war. I don't want there to be a war at all, but we need to disentangle ourselves economically, at least, from communist China, and make sure that we are in a good position that if there ever is a conflict, that we are going to survive, particularly economically. That's the big issue, and we are not doing that. We've still got China there running the Port of Darwin, the Port of Newcastle. Why do we have that situation? Why does that exist? Let's change it. Mate, the final one I've said before, big tech censorship. If we want freedom in this country, we really need to deal with that.
Allona, what about you?
Look, I'm there with George as well, 100%. Look, my passion has always been predominantly health. You know, the removal of body autonomy and our rights. I mean, holistic medicine should be brought back into the healthcare system. The sickness industry is out of control. The health of our children, the mass drugging, I want to look into the necessity and the effectiveness of the vaccines, all the drugs, to be honest. Why do we have so many mental health issues? I want to bring it back to community, and I believe that building communities and giving independence back into the schooling system, bring it back down to homegrown, keep it local, farms. Let's look at permaculture, biodynamics as opposed to monoculture where they need chemicals and pesticides. You know, there's so many different things we could do better. And I believe that the Australian public deserve better and we can do so much better. But through helping the health, not only are we going to save an economic crisis with the NDIS and all the sickness industry, so we can save money there, but we can actually create and have healthy people that can make healthy choices and decisions, you know, and stand on their own two feet and be independent. So look, that's, you know, love what George's saying, and I've got no doubt that Rebecca's got, you know, a vision as well. And I think, look, I would advocate at the moment that we all just get elected, and I think we can make a beautiful world, like, you know, with everyone's skills, and particularly in the freedom movement. I just know that we could create an amazing, beautiful world. So,
so
yeah.
good.
Yep,
So
Rebecca?
good. Yeah, I mean, I agree with George completely. I think we do need to bring manufacturing, and we need to bring a lot more stability financially to Australia. And there's a big issue when we sell our resources offshore to get them made up for us, and then we buy them back onshore at a price hike. Why are we doing that? When we've got people that are unemployed, why are we not bringing manufacturing to Australia? Why are we determined to lay train tracks all over Australia for logistics when we could have shipping lanes? We are girt by sea. Why are we not making really, really great use of shipping lanes? Shipping lanes would create affordable housing. Shipping lanes would create jobs. Shipping lanes would be better for the environment. It would take a whole bunch of cars off the road. It would decrease fatalities on the road. It would be better for travel time. There's so many reasons as why we should have mini ports all over Australia. Not to mention, it would get us out of our $1 trillion of debt in about 3 to 5 years, and then we would be very, very healthily in a surplus. Here's the thing: when you have a mining town and the mine is done, the town dies. A shipping town would never die, because it doesn't matter what's being brought in on the containers, there's always a need to unload and load up. So that means that people who are working remotely, which COVID has proven very, very well that we can do that, they can work remotely anywhere in Australia. We don't need to have people in the major cities. The Greenies are always going on about climate change and that having too many people in major cities is one of the major causes of climate change. Great. So let's depopulate the major cities and put them all around Australia. Let's provide affordable housing so that people that are going through university right now, the young people, can have some hope of actually affording a house at some stage and not thinking that when is this housing bubble going to burst. We need less governmental overreach. We need better legislation when it comes to small businesses. I am yet to see what happens. God forbid we have a whole bunch of more adverse reactions in the coming years. But as far as I'm aware, both the major medical corporations and the government have indemnity against these adverse reactions. And it looks, according to how far I've researched, because I am small business, I've spoken to an insurance broker about it, and it looks like in 5, 10, 20 years' time, if people suddenly start getting majorly damaged, because we don't know the long-term effects of this experimental, provisionally approved drug that they try to pass off as a vaccine, which is neither safe nor effective. What if we have massive long-term issues and the small business owners, the ones that forced their employees to get the jab or you're out of a job because I don't want to lose my business and I have to have my staff vaccinated because that was the mandate that was put out by the government? What if in all of a sudden in 10, 20 years' time, the small business owners are now lumped with lawsuits? having to pay for stage 4 cancers, having to pay for people who are bedridden. God forbid that happens, and I pray that it does not. I pray that in 10 years' time, people look at me and say, you were a conspiracy theorist, Beck, and I'll say, great, I'm so happy for that. I'm so happy that our kids are safe. I'm so happy that our businesses are safe. But historically speaking, a lot of the conspiracy theories keep coming true, and we keep having to come up with new ones. So I really believe from a financial point of view, because I am all about small business, we definitely need to look at financing all of these different things. And that's the way to do it. 97% of Australia's population is built upon small to medium enterprises. If small to medium enterprises falter and fail, the country's economy will collapse. And it has been under a great buckling strain for the last 2 years, going towards wealth centralisation. And I believe that is part of the Great Reset, so that we will all be so absolutely desperate for money that we will do whatever the government tells us. And in the end, we will own nothing but be happy. And so I say we push back against that as a community, as a society. We enforce things that and allow, as a community, we enforce things that allow small businesses to prosper, so that we can fund wellness instead of disease management, so that we can fund a better educational system that's not teaching woke ideologies, that a little boy can go away at the end of term 3 and come back a little girl at the beginning of term 4. So we don't have over-sexualization in our primary schools and early high schools. There are so many things that need fixing in this country. And because I am a small business owner, I always see the dollar value behind what do we need to fix. And I believe that as we free up and empower small business owners, we can be the financial solution to all of the different facets that do need change across this country.
Go, Myk. Go, Rebecca.
Just covered about 20 different emails I'm getting from different courses, just then bang, 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 bang.
Yeah.
Well done. Well, yeah, we're at 9 o'clock. We'll finish it off. One last play. Oh, I'm going to hit record button so I can cut it up. Can I do that? There we go. Maybe. Okay. 1 minute, 2 minutes. Shout out, why should people vote for you? Go for it, Allona.
So why should people vote for me? IMOP, Informed Medical Options Party, is the first pro-choice anti-mandate party established in 2016. We are about truth, transparency and accountability, particularly in science, media and government. We will hold the current government to account for the damage and the destruction that it's done to the Australian people. As a small business owner, I will advocate for small business, bring back manufacturing. Let's look at the health of our children, the health and well-being of our children, stop the sickness epidemic, address holistic health, bring it back into the sickness industry, bring back natural birthing, bring back midwife-assisted birthing, support small banks, communities, independent schooling, homeschooling, look at adverse drug events and address them, look at the NDIS, fix the actual health issues that we've got. I want to remove all mandates and bring back body autonomy, freedom of choice in Australia. So it's important that the Australians stand and actually protect their own rights. So I'm going to say vote 1, Allona Lahn for the Informed Medical Options Party in the Queensland Senate.
Thank you, Allona. George?
Well, look, I'm going to deviate from the script for a little bit here. I'm going to say I think as many people as possible need to vote below the line, and they need to put down all of the pro-freedom candidates and parties that are running in their Senate ballot in particular, because the Senate, it is vitally important there that we have people in place who are prepared to block bad laws and bad legislation. We've all seen what bad laws and bad legislation, bad policies can do to our nation. They can rob us of our rights. They can lock us down. They can curfew us. They can mandate that we put useless things on our face. They can mandate that we have to have a jab of a medicine that's got no long-term safety data, that's provisionally approved only. And if we don't do it, we lose our jobs, or we can't turn up to a particular pub, club, bar, cafe, restaurant. All of these things have happened because of bad laws. We need people in place to stop bad laws. I think personally, Senators Pauline Hanson and Senators Malcolm Robert have been sentinels at the gate trying to stop bad laws, but they need friends. So that's why I'm running for Pauline Hanson's One Nation. I want to be one of those guardians at the gate, but I hope that there are a lot of people from a myriad of parties that are there to help stop bad laws from affecting us, our families, our communities, and most importantly, our nation.
Thank you. And Rebecca.
Folks, if you're watching this video, it's because you've probably already made your mind up that there is something very, very wrong with this country, with the kind of leadership that we have, namely the Labor and Liberal governments. And so it's a very, very easy choice, because no longer do we have to choose Labor or Liberal, and there's only that we can choose from. We have a plethora of freedom candidates that we can choose from, and then put the majors last. So the only decision you really have to make is which freedom candidates would you prefer to put first, which second, which third, which fourth, and so on and so forth, until you get to putting the majors dead last. Why? Because it's a dead horse. Get off, get onto a different one, and let's get up and actually run the race that we have in front of this country. Now, for myself, I have already proven that I can pivot on a dime and do what I need to do. We have raised over $50,000 to go into legal funds so that we can fight unlawful fines for small business owners. We have started a pro-choice directory, which is now a shop local directory and a marketplace. So instead of money going offshore to Amazon, eBay and AliExpress, we're going to keep retail dollars onshore and keep local dollars in local pockets. What you need in Canberra are people that are not only going to talk the talk, but people who are going to walk the walk. Now, clearly I'm a threat, or the mainstream media wouldn't have come after me. Yes, I was disendorsed, and 4 days later, after a long weekend, I actually came back as a Senate candidate. That means I move quickly. That means I move decidedly, and that means I move powerfully. I would love to represent you down in Canberra. I believe that I've got the cojones to do the job, in that I have Steve Dixon, who has a wealth of experience politically behind him, decades in fact. So anything that I am lacking in regards to political experience, I more than make up for in power and agility and transparency and being very, very, very gritty. So vote 1, Rebecca Llyod and Steve Dixon, column H on the great big white tablecloth that is also known as the Senate paper. See you at the polls on May 21st, and may the best freedom parties win and vote the majors last.
Oh, very well done.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Very happy to get you all here tonight. And for all the people watching, I'm happy for you to vote for any of these guys. Obviously, I am a part of IMOP, but I'm trying to keep this all unbiased, because like everyone here said, we need as many freedom parties, freedom fighters, independents in as we possibly can to make the most difference. So I'll be doing this all week. Tomorrow night with Malcolm Roberts and Michael O'Neill, 2 people I've worked with for a long time and have supported me. And Graham Hood, the Qantas pilot, will be joining us as well tomorrow. So again, thank you guys for coming. You're all legends. Good luck.
Thank you.
I hope one, if not all of you, get in. That'd be brilliant. But again, thank you very much, and good luck, and campaign well. Have fun.
Thank you.
Get rest when you can.
Thanks, Mick.
Okay.
Bye, Rebecca. Bye, George.